Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dadsigner podcast. I'm Michael Smith, your host, and today I'm joined by Kameron Davis. Hey, Cameron, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, why don't you tell folks a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a bit about your family?
Okay. I am Kameron Davis again. I am a freelancer. I've been freelancing for the past 2 years. Design is actually my second career. My first career was I was a mechanical engineer, got laid off in 2020 and just said, I'm not going back. So we're purely doing this out of passion, and this is truly what I want to be doing. So design is something that I put a lot of effort into and really care about the work that I put out and how I work with people. So freelancer, and I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been a dad since 2019. I have a 5-year-old son. Yeah, I love right now being a freelancer is kind of by design because I want to be home. I had a dad who was in the army. He was in the military for 20 years, and really I didn't see him a lot of the time. A lot of the time he was gone before we woke up, and then he would get home like right before it was time for us to kind of all wind down. And I decided I didn't want that anymore. So that's a lot of the career projection or direction has been in the hopes of being able to stay home and really be there with my kids and my wife and spend time and really build that foundation for the rest of our lives and knowing each other and knowing dad and learning from dad and that being something that is important. And I feel like a lot of our generation is realizing that gap that we had with our dads. So really just trying to close that and make sure that he's prepared for life and we can kind of remedy some of these issues that we're dealing with, men being lonely, men not having friends. I think that starts with your dad being at home and being there and talking to you and loving on you. So that's my soapbox and kind of why I do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. The pivot, though, mechanical engineering. I mean, I love that, but I want, and we'll get more into the fatherhood stuff. But the pivot from mechanical engineering to design, that's a pretty big shift. Um,
Yeah.
like mentality, preparation, all that kind of stuff. So, did you have art background that naturally slotted you over into design, or like what made you choose that direction?
Yeah, so I've always been a creative kid, always been artsy, always we were in third grade drawing Dragon Ball Z and all like with all the kids and so I was really always into art, but I just didn't I grew up of course in a black household, and when it comes to trying to rise up the ladder and like make more for ourselves, that is important. So I grew up with a mom who's an educator, and the keys to getting more and getting more for your family is through education was how I was taught. So I went to school for engineering, and I loved engineering, but I love the creative part of engineering. I love the problem solving and the creative thinking. And all the way through engineering school, I took an art class. Every semester I had an art class. And my excuse was like, oh, this is a chance for me to like relax and chill and like have something that's not as like high intensity. But it was because I loved it. Like obviously I was taking art class because I loved it. And so a buddy of mine gave me of course, a pirated copy of Photoshop. And I was like, I looked up like, how do you use this or like tutorials for it? And I was like, I love this. Like this really works with my brain. And then I got an Illustrator. And then on campus, I started making like flyers for different organizations just for free, just because like I wanted to be doing that. And then come to like 2018 or like I graduated from college in like 2015 and go off to my big boy job, and I'm like, I'll leave all that art stuff behind. I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing in life. And I was just sad, like sad. I was a ghost. I felt defeated. I was like, what is going on? And of course my wife was like, you're not doing anything creative anymore, like you're not doing anything artsy, you're just going to work. And like that's when I started waking up at like 4:30 in the morning to just do something creative before I went off to work. And I loved it, even though it was like I was tired, of course. And then I started doing like design for clients and like finding little projects to work on. And so the pivot was natural. It was like a natural pivot because I was already like building to that. But I thought I had like 5 years to wait. I was like, oh, I got 5 years and then I can make the transition. But of course, it doesn't, you never get what you ask for. So I got laid off, and my wife was like, you don't have to go back. Like, we can do something else, which she is just a gem. Like, she's a jewel for even like you planned a life with me that looked a certain way that was more security, and to give that up and be like, hey, we can throw that all away and right now we can like do something different and start over basically. And so
Yeah,
we've been in that 5 years still like in that start over process. But we're building something that will be sustainable, I feel, for like the rest of our lives. But when it comes to education, I have that engineering degree and I have YouTube. I've learned a lot of stuff from books, YouTube, colleagues. Like I'm very much proponent of like peer learning and peer mentoring. So just having friends who are also like educated in certain pieces of design, I'll be like, hey, can we chat? And like they'll teach me stuff, I'll teach them stuff, and we kind of have built that way. So
that's cool. And I mean, 2020 is what, 1 year after you had your son?
yes, which was wild. Like I was like, they would never lay off a fresh new dad. Like there's no way. Because I was just
Yeah.
naive. You don't know how that stuff works. Like our parents had jobs. My dad was in the military, which is, I mean, I would consider one of the most secure jobs you can have. So we didn't see much shifting when you're still a government property. They're not, they might shift your job, but you still have a paycheck regardless. So I've never seen that. And so I was like, and the wildest thing is Juneteenth happened like 2 weeks before I got laid off. So I was like, there's no way they would lay off a new father, a black guy, and in like the next 2 weeks. And it happened. Like
Yeah.
it does happen, kind of thing.
Yeah. And you're do you think you would have been as confident to head the direction, new dad, just laid off, if your wife wasn't like, "We got this. I know you can do it." Was it her support and her push that kind of like gave you the confidence to do it?
100%. Like, and now that I've had some like space away, I feel like there was a lot of like, I didn't know myself. I was just doing a lot of things that I thought I was supposed to. And for her, it feels like she had that understanding a lot earlier than me. So, like,
Mm,
the past 5 years have been a journey of like discovering myself and kind of finding that confidence. But at that moment, she had it. She knew where we were going. She was like, I actually always pictured a life of that, like our life right now. She said she actually pictured in 2020 and before that. And I'm like,
wow.
I have no idea how you had that foresight, but she was like, I always saw that in you. And it's just wild to be understood in a time where you feel like everything that you were supposed to have is falling apart.
Yeah.
And someone that is there holding your hand is like, hey, we're good. Like, let's just do this. And not to say that I haven't cried and complained and struggled through these past 5 years, but to have someone on your side that is like her is amazing. Like I can't be, I'm so happy that we still get to continue life and moving forward and doing things together. But ultimately, it was the lifestyle. We just wanted a different lifestyle, and the only way to get it was not going to be to go back and get another job. And still to this day, we're like, okay, we can give up the entrepreneur life, but it's not what it's going to give us $50,000 a year. Like that's not going to get us anywhere like that we want to go. So that's kind of the understanding behind it. Is it's all sacrifice leading to a bigger and better picture that works for us, kind of thing.
Yeah. Especially at the age that your son's at. I mean, the freedom that the entrepreneurial life brings is worth more than $50,000.
Yes. 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, and again, I believe those first 5 years are so important. A lot of kids, they start off in daycare by like, I mean, not to slight anybody, but by like 18 months they're in daycare. And it's like that's a lot of time, like developmental time that you spend not with your parents. So if you can, I say like, hey, do it. Like find a way to be around your kids in those young ages because they're eventually not going to want to be around us. Like that's the trajectory.
It happens way sooner than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then is that what led you to start the podcast? Do you have a podcast? Tell us a little bit about that and what led you to start
Yeah.
that.
So this is the third iteration of a podcast.
Okay.
The first podcast I started with like a buddy from high school, and me and her were doing like current events, just kind of talking about things we wanted to talk about. But the whole podcast journey was just like I was in engineering. You're a lot of, I mean, working. I was working in a like big corporation, like Fortune 5 corporation, and so in doing that, I didn't know what my voice sounded like. So a lot of it was just like putting myself in front of the camera, putting my voice on tape. like what do I sound like, what do I care about. So it was just really an exercise in that. I didn't know I was going to like it as much as I did. So we had that first version of a podcast. It was called Wisdom by Design, and we were just talking about random stuff. And then the second iteration was Do You Know Designers? And that is kind of what I still do format wise, but the name I felt kind of pigeonholed me. So now the version is creative questions. And so now I just bring on any type of creative, comedian, cook, anybody who uses creativity in their like career endeavors. That's the type of people that I want to talk to and get to know. Like, hey, what makes you tick? A question that I always ask at the end is, what does creativity mean to you? And you would be surprised at all the different routes people have found to name what creativity is. So it's a very fun thing. And podcasting is one of those things where like you really get to know people and understand people and spend time with people. And that's probably my like favorite part is like these are all people that I didn't know before this. And now we spend an hour together and it's like I kind of understand how you tick and like the things that you've gone through. And it's like really personal and it's fun. It's fun to get to know people, especially like coming from the world that I came from. And a lot of people were just closed off. So
Yeah.
creators aren't like that though. They're like, I'll talk to you forever.
Yeah. Do you feel like when like you reach out to someone, you see their persona online, you see, what they do, and then you get a chance to talk to them, you have a totally different perspective of who they are?
Yes, every time. Because you and I've talked to a lot of people that like when I was first thinking about going to design, like I'm still in engineering phase and I'm just at work on YouTube, and I've like I saw people and they inspired me and I was learning from them like just through the Instagram and YouTube and I get to meet them in real person. I'm like, dang, you're so much cooler than I ever would have thought you were online is what happens a lot of the time. So it's really cool to get an opportunity to give a platform to the people who inspired me when
Yeah.
I didn't know this would ever be something that I would even do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember sitting in my bedroom when I was like fifth, sixth grade, and I had an old tape player, but you could record as well, and it had microphones on it. And I remember recording, I don't even like a radio show or something with a buddy, like in my bedroom way back in the day, never imagining that like though podcasting would become a thing and then that I
For
would have a
sure.
show, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's dope. And that's what I'm saying. Like we do these little things when we were a kid and like to not know that we were even like setting ourselves up for even the idea of something we would want to do in the future. I talked to Meg Lewis and she talked a lot about how um go back to the things that like when you're curious about who you want to be and what you want to do, go back to those things that really inspired you as a kid, that you were really into as a kid. Those things are the things that probably are still in there. You just have put some other stuff on top, but the passion is probably still there for you in those ways. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and then like on the design side, let's talk about a couple projects. Two that I want to highlight, and I mentioned this earlier, before we hit record, is they're I like them both for very different reasons. They're like opposite ends of like the design spectrum. But Heart Work is one, and then Cherished Bond is the other. Talk to us a little bit about each of those projects and how they came to be and how you developed them.
Yeah. So Heart Work is one of probably my first projects that I've done on my own. I had a buddy from high school who was like, I don't have a lot of money, but I want to go ahead and start this business because I'm a contractor or he does construction or helps people like improve their homes. And he said he was like tired of seeing people like the industry for getting someone to help you like upgrade your home is very he said expensive and he was tired of seeing people taking advantage of and he wanted to be able to give people a more affordable option to have them come to him and he helped them improve their homes but in an affordable way. And I was like, okay, that's perfect, that's like aligns with what I care about. Like we're helping people, we're trying to do it in a way that the lower people in totem pole are able to access. So I was like, I'll do it for, I think I did that for $500. And when I come up with a brand, it's just like, I don't want the money to get in the way of what the possibilities could be. So that's one of those things where it's like, I think originally I just gave him a couple logos and the color palette. and then everything else I kind of built out for the case study. Because that's one thing that I learned early is like these case studies are the platforms for you to go out and get more work. So here's an opportunity to make a motion piece, or here's an opportunity to show the world that these logos and these pieces can work in. So that's kind of what built that one. And when it comes to like the design of it all, he wanted it to be like masculine and feminine. So
Mm,
that's where it's like the heart and the work together is really a balance of the masculine and feminine. So even when it comes to the logo mark, there is parts where we could have made it all rough around the edges, all squared off, but we wanted to take some opportunity to round it to make it more approachable. And even in the word mark, and to have the heart and then the work is italicized to show like the work being effort and the work being change. So there was a lot of thought put into how I put that like that logo together. But yeah, that one was fun. And then Cherished Bond is something that I did more recently. This is a funny story because people don't know this, but I did that logo for a trade. So I've been seeing trades come up a lot lately as people are like, should you trade work for getting other things? I traded that for 3 babysitting sessions.
nice.
Because babysitters are hard to come by, especially as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
parent. It's hard to come by. So um I was like, cool, I can do that. And she's a professional. She's a postpartum doula. People pay her a lot of money to sit and like take care of her, like come in and help them with that time after giving birth. So I think that's still a very respectable trade for what she does. So that project, I really wanted to get that like feminine touch on it. I very again, I'm very thoughtful in the when I'm doing inspo. And when it comes to like doing a more feminine brand, I put it in front of my wife. I'm like, would you like this? Or would you like what do you think? So there's a couple iterations where she was like, no, this is not that's not it. So this was one where I was like, okay, what do you think of this? And she was like, yes, that's softer. There's that connected feel. And then the logo mark is a little weird. Like I was in a season of like, let's do something that is different and a little off the wall, because I feel like with marks, you end up trying to do things that are basic and it's all been done before. So how do you break that? You got to be a little weird. So that mark comes off a little weird, but you still feel that like feminine connection. And people are always like, "Oh, is that a uterus or is that like the glands and like breasts for like breastfeeding?" And I was like, "No, it's literally just flowers, but it's so cool that you can make something that's a little weird and people see other things in it." And you put like the brand name and then with the brand what the brand does, and they're like they put the story together and the world together for you. And so that's a really cool one. um, but again, the case study doesn't need to be as much as I built, but that's the platform for me to go after more work. Um, but yeah, I have fun with those. And it's like, how, as a small time new designer, do you punch above your weight and show off that you have the chops to go after bigger work? You have to build out the case study a little bit more, explain your thinking. I wrote a whole Substack article for that Cherished Bond piece because I want people to understand what my thought process is in going into this type of work. So I think that comes from the engineering brain. Like, how can we document what happened here?
Yep.
But it's important. People want to know what you're thinking through there. You're not just a computer. You don't just input in and output a logo and a brand. It doesn't work like that. It's messy. So
Yeah.
how can you document that messiness and that understanding of the type of person you are for other people to be able to see?
Yeah. And I think for both of those, some of the elements that stood out for me in the case studies was the color schemes and the fact that you added motion, which I think uh I've been afraid to touch. So it's good. I think it's really cool that you incorporated those elements into the case studies too.
Yeah, that's so. Actually, motion is one of those things. 5 years ago, when I was like, okay, where do we go with this? That I was like, okay, what's on the horizon? Like, what's coming? And I saw motion being one of those things that's very valuable. Like, it allows you to add personality to things, and then it's more eye catching. Now we see probably motion design everywhere. It's like a staple. So that's still something that I'm playing with and learning, and just taking my time to learn. but it can really add a lot. And After Effects is scary. You are absolutely right. So it is something that does take time to kind of understand, but it does add a nice little piece. So
Yeah. I've seen it help sell designs. So I was working in-house as a designer, and we contracted a large agency to rebrand our logo. And some of the concepts they presented with motion.
yeah,
And it just really helped sell the idea of what they're going to do. And this particular agency, I just saw something they put out yesterday for a well-known brand. They use it all the time, and they use it really effectively. And um, sometimes you work with an agency and they want to blow this smoky story of like, oh
yeah,
yeah, it means all these things, and like I feel like motion just cuts through all that, and it's like I don't have to say anything. I'm just going to put this out here, and then I'm going to make it move, and then you're all going to go, ooh.
yes. Yes, that is it. And especially a client that knows nothing about motion design, they're
Yeah,
like, do that again.
yeah, yeah. And they just sit there at night and they watch it on a loop.
Yeah. Yep. And that's
That's
their
so cool.
brand and they get to wear that every day. So
Yeah,
that's why I've invested in it and I'm like, okay, this is important. This is a thing that people are going to it sucks. Like that's one thing that I've been talking to my wife about. I'm like, the when you have high taste for things, but you have to start at the bottom, that gap hurts.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Totally. Yeah. What is like next? What is ideal next steps for you as you continue to build and grow the freelance side of things?
yeah, and I think that's a question that I'm asking myself every day. I do a lot of things under my own name, which is great, but it can be hard to kind of scale and like find help for things. You work for like you do freelancing for an agency and they expect everything to be from you. So that's how like that lessens the opportunity for you to maximize on like the money you can make from getting and gaining clients, because talking to people is not a problem that I have. I love talking to people and building relationships. So that's really where a lot of my value lies. So it's like, how can I make the pivot from like being the person who's moving the mouse to the person who can go and talk somebody up and be like, okay, this is what dreaming for you looks like, and this is what we can make for you. So I think the next step is probably building more of like a studio situation and building out fully a website and going from just Kameron Davis to Power, because that's what I normally call my like creative studio. So I've had a couple interns at this point. I have an intern who he just graduated from college, so he's not really an intern, but he's working with me kind of on the side. So it's like, how do we find more of those connections and working relationships with other freelancers to build again? You got to at some point you got to scale. You can't be the only person turning the knob, or what happens when you're sick and you can't turn the knob anymore. In our country, at least, there's really no net. Like there's really no net situation. So how do we build and go from just a single person to kind of more of a small team?
Yeah, that's cool. And do you think that will enable you, free you up also to be more present with family, your son, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that will allow do I will say I will at this point pick hanging out with them over. I'll stay up all night if I have to do some work. So I think that will make that a better situation, um, and more balanced. But yeah, I think so. My wife again is building her own business, and her business is more like she has contract. She's a childbirth educator, so she has built in like written and designed a curriculum, and she has contractors who teach that around the Phoenix Valley area, and she wants to expand it nationally. And I'm like, you got something there where you're just working brand and back end, and that is something that is very scalable, and you get to kind of do whatever you want. If you're like, hey, I don't want like I want to take a break, you can. So I want to come up with something for in a situation like that for myself. So I know with design is different. People like to they create their own agencies and still work 95 hours a week. And it's like, that's not what I want.
Yeah,
So how can we
yeah,
scale in a way that's like better for the family?
yeah. Totally. And as far as your son's concerned, as he's growing up, developing all that kind of stuff, how do you foster creativity with him?
Oh, every like we have a whole our whole back office is you see all the art. We have a bunch of art on the wall outside in the living room, all art. We have posters, things we've made. So, and we have like a whole shelf that is just all art supplies. And I envision like the next place we go, it'll just be a room full of art supplies, hopefully with like walls that you can like draw on, spray paint on. But we foster it by doing it also. Like my wife draws, she pulls out the watercolors. Like we want that to be. We realize that creativity is something that in life actually unlocks a lot of doors. It gets treated like it unlocks no doors, but it unlocks everything. Being creative in how you think and how you accomplish things opens the world to you. So that's why we want to foster it and like allow him to play in that. He's already started like drawing on his own, like just from his mind. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like being a 5-year old and like he'll take a sheet of paper and draw you something that covers the whole paper in like 4 or 5 minutes. And he's like, yeah, this is a robot and this robot doing this and that's doing that. I'm like, you're already like storytelling and like building worlds like already. And I think it's just because it's available. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a big piece of it.
How much of that philosophy, because in the beginning of the podcast you talked about how you were raised where you have to go get educated in order to, climb the ladder and be more successful and get that you know living and availability. How much of this mindset of creativity unlocks doors has shifted because of your own experience?
Oh, I think all of it. Like, because again, I was told that like art is not going to take you anywhere. Like, put that aside. These books will get you everywhere. And it's like because I realize now that like I do a creative job and like even in being able to talk and connect with people, I think connection is a creative act. Like to be in company with people is part of that world too. And it's like we think that when we go and get a job, it's because of the work that we've done. 90% of the time it's because of who you are and like what you can like having the ability to talk to people and put your points on the table of the type of person you are. So I think the world has it backwards. Like our society has it backwards. And I've yeah, for my upbringing and like rejecting I didn't realize that when I was like no more engineering jobs, but I think that's something that's come in the growth of the last 5 years of like this is the world here is much bigger than anything I would have created being locked in an office for 8 hours every day. Um, so yeah, that's some perspective is what I'll say at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's cool. I have two more questions I'd love to ask you, and those are: what has been your greatest parenting joy, and what has been your greatest parenting learning?
oof. I think joy has just been like seeing him excited about things. Like just getting to we went to Dave and Buster's a couple weeks ago and to see a kid in Dave and Buster's for the first time is amazing because they just like everything's lighting up, everything is fun. And like just to see him have an opportunity to have fun when I like for a long time I had a hard time having fun. I just was disconnected from it because the pursuit I felt was like money and getting a job. But to see him have joy and know that like he gets to have that for nothing. Like I don't ask anything of you, just go and have a good time. To is so pure. So I think it's just being able to have fun times with him with no expectation. Like just let's just go have fun. Um, and then learning the other piece of that is he reflects a lot of I haven't my mom passed a couple years ago. So now being on this journey and like trying to understand myself, I don't get a chance to like ask her those questions. And
Yeah.
my dad he was gone a lot. So there's like this piece that feels like it's missing, but I feel like a lot of in the way that he behaves was how I behaved as a kid. And it's really cool because it's how I behaved and it's how my wife behaved. So in a way, I get to see how she grew up, and I also get to see how I grew up. So it's like learning from him how to better take care of myself and to better understand myself. And a lot of things that like I didn't like. I have ADHD, and like a lot of the things that like I really struggled with because no one ever told me. And till I was like 30, my wife was like, "Dude, you know you have ADHD, right?" And I was like, "What?" and, and I've been on a journey of understanding that ever since. And but I see it in him, and I see how that could have been like fostered and supported, and how it's not a negative thing. But I get to learn from him, and kind of like those things I get to also take on and learn how to take care of myself. It's cool. It's That's why having, I don't know, having kids is so cool in that way, when you take and like hold the space and have the perspective to like, hey, they're little humans, like they are little humans, but they are a little piece of you too. So just be quiet and pay attention. Like be quiet and watch. Like you don't always gotta tell them what to like. Give them a second. They teach you things too. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing about your parenting, your design work. If people wanted to find the podcast or find your work or connect with you online, where are all the places they can go to do that?
I post most of the time on Instagram. That is, my handle is pwr.create. And I post, that will take you everywhere because I post about the podcast. I have a Substack where I post also. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, I'm Kameron Davis on LinkedIn. But I post about everything at all times in the same place. So you'll be able to find it if you just show up to those places.
Sweet. Well, thanks for coming on, and this was really good.
Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you.